going back to how the beef started. Harlem's came. You asked me how we ended up getting into it with the Harlems. What happened? Harlem's came over to the hood.
For the dime moves and the lokes, for the 6-4s on spokes, for the OGs that did a dime, came back around on parole, for the homegirls with the scrap game, little homies that gang bang, from Pelican Bay to YA, rearrange your mind frame. Yeah, I know what you've been through, shit you had to go tend to. Your mama gave birth on the turf, I know them killers you kin to. This for the lost generation, broke as hell, mad and impatient.
I created Conan Parker in my mother's garage.
I had a lot of, lifting weights, and I was on swole. They start calling me Big Miz.
Original Stutter Box, Eastside Fighters, Pavlo Bishop, Mill City Gangsta Bloods.
Kev Mac video, you know this is for sure. Kev Mac video, open your soul.
This is only the beginning.
A bunch of cats from out the 30s. I ain't gonna say no names. I don't even want to say no names. But all the 30s came from. All the Harlems came from the 30s. Yeah, you can explain your part when you get to in a second. I'm finna get to it. And then what happened? Making a long story short, they say we want this part of the hood back. They wasn't tripping with the Marvins. They wasn't tripping off none of that over there on that side, because Marvin Hood and Geer Hood is Harlem Godfather Hood, straight out. That's original Harlem Godfather Hood. We broke it in half. They took one half. We took one half. How it happened, I don't know. We was all partners all at one time. One half went that way, and the other half stayed over on the other side of the freeway. So anyway, they came over there, and at the time everybody was strung out. A lot of cats were strung out, smoke on the pipe, and all this. A lot of homies was gone. So they was like, shit, we need all this. So they was like, we want this hood part of the hood back. And the homies like, hell no, man, y'all tripping. So next thing you know, I go to the joint. When I get to the joint, 87. By the time I come home, a couple of homies had then got shot and got killed by the Harlems, and then and that's when it and when I that's
well,
when
I believe I
off.
was there to my aspect of it during 1980 in Bertrand in Third World, and a lot of guys that was in the neighborhood, and my neighborhood had blew up. We had became the biggest dope hood in Los Angeles. We had people like Robert Downey Jr., Natalie Cole, the DeBarge lived on Carlin, Peaches DeBarge, and we had all the DeBarge brothers. This was during the time that Janet Jackson was married to James DeBarge. We had Ike Turner, and we just had so many celebrities that was in our neighborhood. From the Smokey Robinsons, all of them was coming, and they was spending money, and they was parking and hanging out and camping in the neighborhood. But after we went through another transition and moved a lot of people out of our neighborhood due to so much discrepancy was going on, we had some of our OGs that was Harlem Godfathers. They came with their thing. So we couldn't actually push them out because they was born and raised in the neighborhood as well. They were actually our big homies. They was the Godfathers. And those are the guys that gave the 30s the green light to come over there and open up shop. But as we went, when one gang feel like they're bigger than another, and they feel like that they can get away with certain things, and one thing led to another. And I believe one of them robbed my homies. A bunch of them were strung out. A bunch of my homies and us were strung out.
I got robbed.
Okay.
I remember that. Yeah, you can talk.
Okay. Well, they started. They robbed a few people, and when they did that, retaliation started going back and forth. So they started coming over there, and I believe they killed my homie Mounts. So they came over there, and we got at them. And ran them up out of there, and they came back and killed my homie Mounts, and that's when the war started.
What was the relationship like with the Fortray gangsters?
Our relationship with the Fortray gangsters was very good. That was Bebop and Kev and all of them, man. Crip Kev and Babaloo and all of them, man. They would all, and a lot of them dudes would come to our neighborhood and kick it with us. They would hang out. They had a spot in my hood, Bohannon and all of them.
But don't forget when you talking about if I'm mistaken, he talking about the East Side.
Yeah.
Don't forget Big Eki, OG Eki, OG Crip Eki influenced us too. You know him. We had Crisscross. You know, we had OG Bob Brown. Bob Brown was like a father to me too, man. And then you gotta remember we had
Talking about the hood.
okay, well we talking about let's talk about
When you say Eki, you talking about original East Side Ranger Washington Party.
Yep, that Eki. That's the only Eki I know. That's the only Eki I know. All East Side Crip Eki. Yeah, he had played a major role in the hood. He influenced us. Him and Crisscross.
He was our mentor.
He was one of our mentors. Him and Big Ed,
And
Edward Williams. You know, all of them.
Crawford.
Yeah.
And Norman Crawford.
Norman Crawford, which is Crisscross.
Which was killed in
the struggle.
In the struggle.
Yeah.
In the new struggle with the 18s now.
Yeah.
We'll get to that one. Let me ask you, did you know a guy named Casey on Carlin?
Yeah, that's my homeboy.
That was my homeboy.
Yeah, that was our homeboy from our hood.
I was with him every day. We was together every day.
Yeah, that was a homie, man, all day long. Rest in peace, homie.
So let me see, you knew Casey and Daff. Anything else you could tell us about Daff?
Yeah,
Daff was the big homie, man. We looked up to Daff.
Go
ahead, man.
And I would like to get this straight about Daff was our big homie, and it was brought to my attention that his brother was a big influence on us. His brother was a great influence on us and a big influence on us, but I also want to say this. His brother was never once involved or had nothing to do with anything with gangbanging that I know of. And if you had something to do with gangbanging, I believe he was the type would get away from you. And he is the type would get away from you. The man was a pimp all his life. And that's what he was. And he had a great mind, and he was a great inspiration. But he was a pimp, man. He wasn't no gang member, and but you know.
Who you talking about, Marco?
Big O.
I don't know Big O.
Big O is Daff's, and Big O is Daff's and Mark's and Dewberry's oldest brother.
But he ain't had nothing to do with the hood, period.
Yeah, he didn't have nothing. That's what I'm saying.
Nothing.
He influenced us. He gambled with us. That whole family, that whole Mosley family was a family that was just a family.
So I got a question, man. In our original Geer interview, threw me for a loop when they said y'all wasn't getting no money over there.
I think that was the biggest. I don't believe no hood ever rolled bigger than those guys. Wasn't those guys really wasn't active in that form. Everybody didn't come off the porch. Since we speaking on that part, because I did look at that interview, and I'm not knocking it. Everybody didn't come off the porch. Everybody couldn't come off the porch, but we came off the porch and we got our money and we worked hard and we turned our hood into the biggest dope dealing hood and fast money making hood in history of Los Angeles.
I know in 79 to 82, I was in junior high with some Geers and they dressed fresh as anybody else.
I would like to speak on that if you let me.
Give it to them.
Back then you had, I'm not going to say no names because I ain't dirty macking nobody, but you had some sets, because I used to run with them, that be boosting, you know, they was real good boosters. But then when it came to us, my hood particularly, we was hustlers, man. We was doing B&Es, jury licks. And some of them was doing jury licks too. But we was doing jury licks too, hitting houses and I'm talking about Hollywood and the Valley and Beverly Hills. When it wasn't no cameras and it was just alarm systems where you go in the backyard and cut the electricity off and go straight in the house and get everything. You know, I was one. I knew I was balling. I was balling back then as a little kid. I was doing the most. At 81. While we talking, 13 years old, 1980, I went and hit a lick. I hit a lick for about 15, 20,000 and went and bought a little reel. Had jewelry, had a yin yang jewelry, guns, everything. And I was 13 riding around in Hollywood. Now we up at Flippers, right there on La Cienega. In Santa Monica, La Cienega and Sunset, something like that, had a Flippers skating rink. We go to Flippers.
Flippers was located at the corner of La Cienega and Santa Monica Boulevards. Flippers was once a bowling alley called La Cienega Lanes, owned by Art Linkletter before it was converted into a roller rink in 1979. Art Linkletter was the easygoing, smooth voice MC famed for his long-running hosting gigs of the radio and television shows such as House Party, People Are Funny, and author of Kids Say the Darndest Things. The floor was coated with a substance that made gliding look magical. Colorful strobe lights bouncing off the mirrors with extra loud speakers. Flippers had a bar, a restaurant, and a custom skate shop with artificial life-size palm trees and Art Nouveau murals. The rented booth was decorated to look like a lush tropical paradise. At night, Flippers turned into a roller disco for adults, but kids could also sneak in and see roller fanatics such as Olivia Newton-John, Cher, and Gene Simmons.
We go to Flippers on a weekend, on a Saturday, but when we come out of Flippers, we down on Santa Monica and all over there on Fountain, all there robbing. We robbing folks, man. And that's how we stayed up too. That's way before Dope Game came out. We was taking shit. We was jacking, robbing, and doing burglaries. We was doing the most. And man, the hood was doing the most. So anytime I seen the interview too, the first interview with the homies and all that, but I ain't even gonna speak on that.
I just thought of somebody else I wanted to ask you about. I don't know if y'all want to speak on the relationship with the schoolyard and when and how that went back. Can y'all speak on that?
Well,
Man, I'm always love them dudes, man. I'll speak on that real quick. I'm always love and respect. You can say your version or whatever you feel.
I love them too.
I'm always love and respect them dudes, man. Because I went through the struggle with some of them dudes, man. And you got some good dudes come from over there, man. You know, 10 toes down, man. You got some good dudes came from over that way. And while we talking, I want to first say, man, I miss my boy Mad Ali, man. Oh, I miss Mad Ali. Oh, I miss Ali like crazy, man.
Where was he from? Schoolyard?
Oh, man. Big C dog. Crazy C. I miss all of them, man. I miss a lot of them
Phil
dudes,
and Ali
man.
was they man.
But Ali, you know, man, it wasn't nobody like Ali. Y'all just know this. Wasn't nobody like Ali from Schoolyard Crip. He was one of a kind, homie. He held his position very well, and I'm gonna let that go because I still love all them other dudes too, man. I'm the main dude that brought me and my hood with these dudes, man. So when it comes to this, I'm gonna admit it. I'm in feelings and facts with this because this is facts. But at the same time, I'm in my feelings about it because I got a lot of love for the dudes. A lot of good stuff, good things came. More good came out of than bad came out of socializing with them guys, man. A lot of good came out.
If I could say something, I would.
I'll let that go.
Yeah. Hold on.
I can say that as far as the schoolyards is concerned, you was asking how did we get cool with them? We came cool with the schoolyards in 1981 before the end.
1980.
1980, 81.
Yeah. Man, we was so cool with the yards, man, when we was coming up. As we got older, some of the yards started having being in relationships and getting married and all that stuff. Some of the family members did. It just went both ways. Some as we got older, some ended up having children with some of these guys from Schoolyard, and some ended up having children with guys from Geer. So that's just how it went. But at the same time, the bond, you couldn't really seal the deal with the bond. It just wouldn't work.
Y'all just wasn't that tight, or because of the Trey and the Deuce?
I think it had more of an influence on that Trey and the Deuce gang, because I'm thinking because what happened is, when we first started, we was original Geer Avenue Gangster Crips. But as we got older, the gangsters took that gangster, all the gangsters took that gangster name, and we wasn't trying to be a part of no gangster car. We wasn't trying to be a part of no trade or car or, certain cars. We just wanted to separate ourselves from, and we just stuck with the Deuce. Two times. We Deuces. And that's when we stuck with just straight Geer Gang Crips. Because we had to separate ourselves from the other gangs. So what they started doing, for instance, the in-hood car, you started snatching all the 30s, 40s, 60s, 90s, how that go. And then that started going on. And then the gangsters started, the A7 gangsters, Marvin gangsters, Playboy gangsters, all the gangsters started linking up. And see, we had to separate ourselves from all the different cliques, and that's like the end hoods, like the East Coasters and the neighborhoods. All the neighborhoods came together, and then even though we cool with we cool with Crips, period, all this different sets, but at the same time we wanted to just separate ourselves from everybody, so we just stuck with Geer Gang Crips 2 times, and that way we not obligated to other different cliques, you know, regulating us. That's what it really was boiling down to. Who's going to be control? And you can't control the homies. The homies is the homies.
Being that y'all was claiming deuces, did y'all have some type of alliance or?
Yeah, we did.
With the West Boulevard?
Yeah, big time. They was the ones started us. If it wasn't for West Boulevard starting us with that, we probably wouldn't have been deuces. That was the major. They was the major influence of us being, because we could have easily been just straight Trays. We could have been Trays.
No, we couldn't.
Or Harlem's. We could have easily. But the West Boulevards, when we started gangbanging, the West Boulevard said, "Man, y'all need to push this deuce." And then we was with that, and we started pushing the deuce with them. You know, and that was a good thing. It wasn't nothing bad about that.
Let me hear from you. Why couldn't y'all have been Trays?
The reason why I said we couldn't have been Trays is when the transition came. When that transition came, the Marvins went over there with the gangster car. They started claiming they went from Marvin Avenue to the gangster car. And it kind of, every gang became gangsters on that west side, but West Boulevard and Geer. We followed the West Boulevards. They was our big brothers. I'm gonna keep this real. It ain't no other gang that ain't part of the 3 times. Everything else other than the show lines. When I went to prison, Tommy said we was always cool with the show lines. When I went to prison, we was never cool with the show lines. When I went to prison and got out in 90, when he went to prison, I went to prison, Big Red and Ice went to prison, the homies made amends with them. Before then, we was always beefing with the show lines, but we love them dudes now. I love them dudes to death. But we was deuces, man. We only had one ally. That ally was the West Boulevard Crips. And I give my shout out to y'all. Y'all been my big brothers all my career, man. I love y'all, man. We got to make it together.
Let me ask you guys, being from Adams area or West LA, what is that, West Adams area?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mid-city area, West Adams.
What Crips do y'all think or know was beefing with the Jungles the most?
Shit. Jungles wasn't playing. I ain't gonna lie. With whoever came through there back then.
That was your number one?
I stayed over there. They beat me up a couple times. They got me one good time though. I walked over in Sherm Alley. Let me show you. No, it was by myself. I went with my little girlfriend, with Deborah Owens from her brother. One of her brothers is from 20s and the other one is from the Jungles.
I'm talking about the park.
That was after. That was after they beat the shit out of my ass. Then we went to the park and
they was building the park then.
When we went to park, that's when ex-con from A-Tray Gangster pulled up and jumped out that blue station wagon lowrider and said, hold up, cut, and told stop the black zone, because they was finna try to, this what he talking about, what G talking about, they was finna try to rat pack us. But what I was talking about is when I went in Sherm Alley with Deborah Owens, we went to the Jamaican spot to get some weed, and I'm all cripped up, and I'm crazy. I don't know what was wrong with me at the time. I'm all cripped up with the royal blue hoodie on without the hoodie, sweatshirt with the 501 jeans with the blue chucks with the thick blue shoestring with my braids going back. And I go over there in Sherm Alley, man. Sherm Alley. Why I had to be crazy retarded. Because today I wouldn't do half the shit I used to do. Anyway, I went over there, walked over there, and while she going upstairs to get the weed, I'm standing outside. Them niggas came around me, about 20, 30 motherfuckers, beat the dog shit out of me, stomped me, knocked me unconscious. Got home, 2 black eyes, dislocated jaw all swole up all kind of way. Knots and shit all on my head. My mama brought me back to life though. She gave me Valiums and perks and all that kind of shit for 2 weeks. And I stayed in the bed for 2 weeks, man. And that's what, after that, now, Make a long story short, I'm seeing them on what's that street?
Santa Rosa.
Santa Rosalia. Santa Rosalia in Buckingham. I'm standing right there about two alleys down, and I'm watching them on a Friday. They stumping a Crip out. They stumping him out. I know what it is because they was the Jungles was vicious, man, back then. We talking about 1980, homie. 81, about 80. This was 80.
79.
This is 80. They stumping on this little young dude because they accused him of being a Crip. They coming from Audubon. So I'm standing up, sitting there on my bike, and the blood dude say, "Blood, what you looking at?" He was about 18, 19. "Blood, what you looking at?" I'm 13. I said, "I'm looking at you." He said, "Blood, you keep looking over here, you're going to be looking at both knuckles." I keep looking, because I'm tough back there. I think I'm tough. I keep looking. All of a sudden, he said, "Blood, get him." And all of them up jumped up, and started chasing after me. So make a long story short, I go run to the house, get the shotgun, meet them. They start walking the Hillcrest in Santa Rosa. So I go, man, I already went to jail and went to camp, and everything else. I'm telling the story. Would you, please, can we get along, bro?
Yeah, we getting along.
Please, and can we allow him to air that so everybody know we don't have to get along?
Get your money, man.
Cause that's cool, cause everybody gonna be laughing at us, man, cause that's the truth.
I love you, man.
Thank you, man.
Money, man.
Anyway, so I run up there, make a long story short, I done seen the police, so I get to busting at them. Booyah, booyah, what? Man, I run, the police chasing me. Hey, stop, huh? I get away. I dive in the bushes, I get away. Long story short, about 30, 45 minutes later, this old dude, man, could have been 21, man. Him and his girlfriend, man, they had to told the police where I went. Now the police is right there with the 20, 30 police with shotguns and everything. Talking about come out the bushes. So making a long story short, that's the first time, that's when I went to camp. I went to camp, went to After Ball, and I did 14 dead weeks. Anybody been to After Ball and Page, they know that program. And that was the first time I went to the box. Has anybody I'm glad I mentioned it. Do anybody remember the box, Juvenile Hall, East Lake, when them lights come out and you in the box is the hole. When you in the box, thousands of roaches come out from everywhere, and the whole night you up killing roaches till like 3, 4 in the morning. You ain't up doing nothing. I'm talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of roaches come from everywhere. Do anybody remember that? I bet a gang of y'all remember that. East Lake Juvenile Hall, the box. Man, I just wanted to bring that up. Man, that was crazy, man. That was one of my, like a nightmare. Anyway, getting back. So I went to East Lake, went to camp. They sent me from After Ball. 14 dead weeks, they sent me to Rocky. I got up to Rocky, I said, I gotta go home. Because back then, when I went to Rocky, I had me and Big Bojangles, one of my homeboys, me and Big Bojangles, we was in After Ball. Big Bojangles kept riding. He was the first one to go. They sent him to Rocky. I get up to Rocky, Big Bojangles still up there riding. They sent him straight from Rocky. That's when I knew I wasn't doing that. They sent him straight from Rocky, straight to TS. And he ain't make it home. He was up there about a good, at least 5, 6, 7 years, man, in that YA system. Anyway, when I got to Rocky, I said, I'm going home. I ain't staying up here. And I started programming. And then I programmed out of Rocky. And then in 83, that's when in 83, when I got home, that's when it got funky, when Nelson got killed and all this other stuff over at the skating ring. This was all in 83 when I came home. This one busing was just officially okay to bust on the motherfucker and kill some shit because it was just going down. I smoked some weed that day when I came home. I don't think I smoked some weed for about 6 months after that. I was so scared and afraid because one of my partners was telling me, Jay from 6-0 was telling me at the time all the shit that was going on. I was like, oh my gosh, scared the hell out of me. And I promise you, man, I ain't smoked no weed for a minute. But anyway, getting back, what you wanted to talk about, man? I just wanted to share that with him. That was something I really wanted to share.
Go ahead. What did you?
Have you been to 4800?
No, I've been to 4700.
Okay. Tell me about the politics in 4700 being the only gear in there at the time.
Yup, the only gear in there at the time. It was politics. When I went during the 4700 time, I probably stayed about 11 days. 12 days in 4700 in the beginning when they first opened it up, not long after. I think I had about 40 days in traffic tickets, man. And I wound up having to do 20 days and wound up doing 11 or something. And I think I was in 4700 Charlie rode with, and actually I didn't have no homies there, but I was there with Charles Ransom and them. I was in the first cell with them for a few days.
And
With Sam and them.
107 Hoods.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was there with them for a few days, and after that I was out of there, and I ran back into a bunch of them dudes up in Corcoran though. And then from there I went to prison, and the last time I went to the module, I think was I missed 21, 23. So I went to the one, that last module, what was that?
3200?
Yeah, when they opened that up. I went back to jail, and that was my last joke.
All right, so when you was in there, what gangs was on your row?
It was Geer Gangs, 8 Trade Gangsters, Comptons, and some East Coasters. And the 60s was down, F-Bone and all of them was downstairs. And in the 30s, and the schoolyards was up there with us, and the show lines was up there with us too. Yeah.
And you didn't have no problems with nobody?
We was actually during that time is with the schoolyards and the gears and the show lines. During that time, we was all together. We was all good.
When you got to prison, who did you run with? Was it any particular car you was in?
Well, actually, who I ran with when I got to prison, the majority of the times when I got to prison, I really kicked it with the West Side car. They call us the Deep West. So whenever I went to prison, I kicked it with the Deep West car, which was the Gears, the show lines, the schoolyards, the PBGs, Mansfields, Marvins. All of us come together in prison. When we in real prisons, we the Deep West car. So we leave all that stuff alone. That's how going on in the streets, and we work together, man. And that's how they go. But outside of that, you can still see that different cars mess with different cars, and different people fall up under different alliances. That's just like no matter what. I was from the Deep West car. The neighborhoods loved me in there. And everybody knew that I was in the neighborhood, but the neighborhoods, that's just in the neighborhoods in the 40s, and all of them loved me in there, and I loved them, but I was from the West Side car, I was from the Deep West car. So we had to still fall up under that same alliance and keep it separate. And sometimes you'd be wanting to really jail and be cool with your homies and with others from the other side or whatever, and you just can't catch that glitch, because you got your alliance that you fall up under. So yeah, that's what that was about. But I never fell off. I always stayed Deep West outside of Geer Gang, but Geer Gang was first.
Did you ever run across any of your homies that was from another hood, or somebody that was your rival was now claiming your hood in prison?
I ran into a few dudes that was from other hoods. That used to be from my hood, that claims other hoods now. I've ran into that a lot.
Was you cool with that, or was it a problem?
Well, I'm always cool with that, and it's never a problem, because I understand that it's hard to do what I'm doing. It's hard to be from Geer, and I always knew everybody can't go. Everybody just can't go, man. Everybody can't do this, man. So, actually, at one time back in the day, I can say that I was one of the enforcers of the Geer Gang. So I probably ran off more people than anything from my hood that would have been from my hood, that was claiming my hood, and I just run them off. And that just didn't make it, because I felt they couldn't go. So at that time, it was like that at that time. I was one of them. I was an enforcer back then. Mm-hmm. I just thank God that I made it, man. If I'd have known like I know, I wouldn't have been an enforcer probably. I'm just glad I didn't nobody kill me or nothing then. And to be honest with you. But times has changed, and we under a different alliance now. and it's hard to stay up under the same rules. That's what it is.